Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to all. My name is Mohammed Imran, and today for language assessment in primary school classroom, I'll be presenting on my topic key issues in teacher implemented assessment in the ESL classroom, understanding barriers to effective language evaluation. So, the first issue that we might highlight is lack of assessment literacy. First and foremost, in the limited assessment literacy, is that many ESL teachers lack training in assessment design. Therefore, they do not understand what is the end goal of the assessment. Secondly, tests may not align with learning objectives nor language proficiency level. And this is where CFR standard really plays a big role, where teachers and students might be able to understand where their level is gauged at. And thirdly, its focus is often on grammar rather than cognitive competence, right? So in a classroom where everything's formal, grammar might be the most important trait. But then again, we are speaking about a language, so therefore, communicative ability or competence is much more important. Right. So here are the impacts: misleading results on students' ability. Right. So student might think they are of a certain level, but maybe they are actually less than so. And secondly, is missed opportunity for skill-based evaluation. Right. So the ability to speak might not necessarily equate to their ability to read. Therefore, it is. It is highly probable that students are not fairly assessed. Bias and subjectivity for the second point, right? Teachers' judgment can be influenced by accent and fluency, right? So maybe people with a British accent sound more formal, cultural familiarity and personal traits, okay, might be that we are not familiar with their particular culture, therefore we cannot access them fairly based on our limited field of knowledge. Inconsistent or unclear rubric amplifies subjectivity, right? So a rubric might be unclear, and therefore it must go through rigorous trials in order for it to be streamlined. So the impact is unfair scores, right? Students are unfairly scored based on limited understanding, and therefore uh, another unfortunate impact is the motivation of students who feel judged unfairly. Again, like I said, if we do not have a bigger field of knowledge, therefore we cannot judge them based on what we lack. Finally, is time constraint and over reliance on testing. So, first and foremost, on the time constraint, is that we teachers often rely heavily on tests due to large classroom size. Right. So, for example, here in Malaysia, the average classroom size is 30 to 1. So, we need 30 students to one teacher. Therefore, it's not really practical for teachers to be focusing on one student over the other in such a short period of time of average 1 hour in the classroom. Lack of time for individual assessment, basically the same thing as I described previously. And last but not least, formative assessment is underused or superficial. So the ability to assess formatively is often overlooked, and the reliance on summative tests due to time constraint is therefore applied more often than not. Right. So here are some of the impact. Later ongoing feedback. Okay, so therefore students are not being able to uh, have not been able to understand where their weaknesses are, and secondly, limited insight into students' progress or needs. So in this case, students are not being able to assess themselves or gauge where they are because teachers do not have the time, simply do not have the time to give them the proper feedback. So here are the conclusions and recommendations that can be applied. First and foremost, invest in professional development on assessment. Right, so teachers are required to develop themselves professionally in the field of assessment. Therefore, and their ability to assess students are made effective, more effective. Secondly, use clear rubrics and involve students in evaluation rather than avoiding students in the evaluation process. We allow them with clear transparency on where do they stand and where they can improve. Last but not least, prioritize formative feedback alongside summative feedback. So in the formative feedback, students are able to see in real time where they are, and in the summative task, usually at the end of the year, school year, they are able to see where they perform and what knowledge they have retained. All right, so thank you so much for listening to my talk. If you have any questions, please put down in the comments down below, and till I see you next time. Thanks.